the process of being a beginner, what that looks like, what that feels like, and how do you get from point A to point B. Now, it's been a while since I've been a beginner. I started hooking in the summer of 2000. And I started hooking because I saw rug hooking on TV. Yeah, I didn't even know anyone who hooked. I didn't know what a hooked rug should look like in person. I just saw images. How do you get from point A to point B? Well, there's a couple of steps, and a lot of people get bogged down in the first step and, quite frankly, never make it past that point. And that is getting your supplies together. Now, you don't need as much as you think. You're going to need a hook of some sort. And it could be a simple crochet hook with some kind of makeshift handle. And one of the easiest and most approachable ways to do that, this is, of course, a professionally made hook, but you can take a crochet hook and add polymer clay to make a thicker handle. And in the basics course that I'm working on now, which will be in the rug hooking journey, that'll have full instructions on how to make your own hook. Maybe for nothing. Maybe you've got polymer clay sitting around like I do, and maybe you've got crochet hook sitting around like I do. And you could make yourself a hook using that. The other thing you're going to need is a pair of scissors. Now, those don't have to be fancy either. What most people start out with is a simple little pair of scissors. This is from the back to school supplies. What I'm looking for is something with a short handle. Okay, it's a little bit easier to use, and particularly if you're using this to cut your strips, this is all you're going to need. An upgrade to that would be these scissors. These are by Tim Holtz, and I love his stuff. I love the vintage. There's a word for that when it looks like old receipts and that kind of thing, but I don't remember what it's called. But I just love his look. And by shopping in that area, I found these scissors. What I like about them is that my fingers fit in here. They don't fit so much in these. And these sides are real squishy, so I don't get blisters or anything along that line. The blades are still just as small as the other ones, right? And I use this for snipping wool into 1/16 of a yard pieces. But when you're starting out, you could use these for cutting your wool strips and for cutting your tails. The grown-up rug hooking scissors are offset scissors, and they look like this, meaning the handle is bent. There are some scissors that are bent the other way, and that's not what you want. You want them bent so that when you open them, the cut part is nice and flat. And what that does is when you're cutting your tails, it allows the scissors to sit nice and flush against the hooking. These come later. These will work perfectly fine in the beginning. So we've got a hook made out of a crochet hook and some polymer clay. We've got a simple pair of back to school scissors. So far, so good. And now a couple of things that you can't get away from, and you're going to need backing. This is a scrap of rug warp, and I do sell scraps in my studio, and what's available varies greatly from time to time. I always have what I call a beginner piece, which is at least 18 inches by 18 inches, sometimes a little bit more, it just depends on the measurements. And they're zigzagged around the edge, and they're $5. So far, so good, right? The next thing you're going to need is scraps. Okay. And what you're going to need, okay, this is not behaving. This is a little bit on the big side. In fact, we can probably take this much away. You're going to need a pile about this big, which is not really huge. This should be about 2.5 to 3 ounces of wool. And that'll hook something this big, which is what our target is. I call this project the beginner square because you're hooking simple straight lines. You're not hooking anything fancy, okay? And by hooking the simple straight lines, you're concentrating on the process of pulling up loops and you're not getting bogged down in the details of what color is a duck. Okay, so beginner square. It can be any color you want and made with any kinds of scraps and any size widths. So chances are, if you know someone who's into rug hooking, you can probably get this much wool as a donation fairly easy, particularly if you're not fussy about color. That's really all we're going to need. So let's get started and let's pull some loops.